like to introduce now Kim Weissman, who I'm so thankful to have on this channel because she comes with a wealth of knowledge and just she's so much fun. If you ever get the pleasure to team with her or have her as your interpreter, you are in good hands, literally and figuratively.
Aww.
And today, Kim is going to talk to us about some of her tips and tricks that she does when she gets approached for a theater assignment, which could be stage, and you've done a lot of kind of variation within the performance stage type of interpreting. One thing I wanted to kind of start out with was what was maybe your most challenging or your most fun assignment that's related to theater interpreting?
Oh boy, that's a good question. There's been shows that I got and I was like, wow, I'm not motivated. It's not really striking my fancy. And then all of a sudden I'm really I start to get into it at some point, and it's always fun when you get to do it. Let's see. The most challenging, there's been a couple. I know that you came to see, I think to date, one of my most challenging shows was Into the Woods. It just so many characters and so fast and a lot overlapping and so much music. That was really challenging, as you know, but maybe not all of you know. I interpret at the Renaissance Fair, and I remember this one show. We all called it the challenge show, and it was this one man show where it was called The Wit of Will. And
I remember that.
He was so funny. And he was basically Shakespeare, and he would either put on the play that he cannot name, which is Macbeth, because we're not on stage, it's not a big deal. Totally or he would do Hamlet. And he would do it, and he would condense it, this whole 3-hour long play, he would condense it into, I don't know.
It was 10 minutes, right?
Something, really. Maybe 30. It's possible it was 30.
Maybe, because I did it once.
Did you do it? That one, and that one was super terrifying. It was really intimidating. To know beforehand, to not really have a lot of prep, except just knowing the context of Hamlet or Macbeth, but then knowing that it's going to be super fast, and that was the point of his show, was to do it really fast and get a rise out of the audience. And but then once you're up there, oh my God, it was really, really fun.
You know what I liked about that particular assignment, and tell me what your thoughts are on it, is it didn't give you time to freak out because you literally were on to the next concept.
Yes.
You had to just keep going, and it didn't give you a lot of time for this back committee to be like, oh my God, was that right? Was that wrong? And you literally just had to be like, I'm going. This is going to be what it's going to be, and just kind of trust that you had it.
Yeah, you're right. And what was beautiful about it, you're right, there was not an opportunity to second guess anything. So it really forced you to commit to everything.
Right. You had to commit to whatever you set up, and you had to go with it. And
yeah, and weirdly enough, it led to a lot of I don't know, synchronicity, I guess, with your space because of it, I think. So because everything is always so recent. It's like, I just placed them over here, so they're going to stay here. And it actually just happened a couple weeks ago, and it went out as like a business meeting. And I showed up, and it was not a business meeting. There was a whole audience, and they were going to be putting on a sketch, and
surprise!
Exactly. I'm like, luckily, I've been trained for these sorts of situations.
I was just thinking about that because I had an opportunity to do a comedy act recently, and I was surprised at how nervous I was because I hadn't gotten to do that type of theater. Like, I've been doing a lot of plays, but not, and a lot of stage work, and a lot of conferences. But I mean, that's totally different than fly by the seat of your pants comedy act. Yeah. And I was telling my team, I'm like, I'm actually a little bit nervous right now. But it was really a good opportunity for me to reflect on what was causing the nerves. And it went phenomenal. I had a great time. My team was awesome. It was really, really fun. There was we supported each other because I did the first act and then they did the next act, and it was great.
I think that timing is the number one thing when it comes to comedy. I mean, that's what any comedian would say. But then it's doubly important for us too, because we need to hit it when they hit it, or just right after, and we also have to make sure that there's, I don't know, cultural mediation in terms of making sure that the joke then lands again in 2 languages at the same time. It's very layered.
I feel like timing that's a life lesson. It's not just an interpreting thing. You gotta get down, but if you can get it down in interpreting, I feel like it really plays well into your life too. It translates.
It totally does. Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. I don't know. I have a lot of fun with improv and comedy. They're always fun. And then I'm laughing too. I mean, I'm enjoying it as well. The problem is it's never reliable how it's going to go. Not only just in terms of my skill, but like, are they going to put the spotlight on me? Like, are they going to rope me into their show? Are they going to like leave me alone? And then of course there's the question of how am I doing? Because I don't know any of the material.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to say that it's my favorite when it's like, it could be the most detrimental, because there's so many question marks. But it's something by like and it's also the most terrifying, but there's something by like the fly by the seat of your pants kind of feeling of it all.
And if a job posting came up right now and it went directly to Kim and it's like, Kim, I've got all of these assignments and you get first pick. What's the first number one that you would want? And it was, what would be your favorite? You would be like, oh, I want that one. Pick me.
That's hard. That's really, really hard.
Oh, come on. You have a favorite.
I was actually reflecting on this. There's something very freeing about like improv, let's just say.
Okay.
You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the material is. Half the time they don't know what the material is going to be. The thing with it is that you have the freedom to just go for whatever the funny is. You just let go of whatever judgment. You let go of how ridiculous do I look. You let go of, I can't believe I'm signing these things. It's such a freeing experience. And it is very freeing in that regard, just kind of going for the funny. There's no judgment with that. You just go for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, because I've talked with several people, and because they know I like to do theater, and they're like, oh, theater, that's so much work.
That is such a common reaction, by the way.
They're like, you have to have like so much heart to be willing to do that. And I'm like, it does take a lot of prep. It does take a lot of work and research, and especially if you're working with a team, and that coordinating about figuring out who's getting which character, and the timing, like we talked about before, is so important.
So important.
And just kind of like researching some of like the concepts of time periods and things like that. Now I know you actually have a long history with the theater, because you grew up in a household that really encouraged you.
Yeah.
Like focus on theater and enjoy theater. I think your dad used to play records or something in the car.
So I can't believe you remember this. So yeah, I grew up with the theater. I grew up, going to the theater. But when I also grew up, we have a tight family. There's 5 of us, me and 2 brothers, and my parents. So every year we would always take road trips everywhere all the time. And anytime we would go on a road trip, back-to-back musical albums, we would be listening to Chorus Line 1 minute, and then the Jazz Singer, not my favorite. Then we'd be listening to Jazz Singer. Then we'd be listening to Fiddler on the Roof. And then we'd be listening to Phantom of the Opera, because they're so ingrained in my childhood. And so becoming an interpreter, it was never like part of my plan to be like, well, I'm going to be one of those theater interpreters. It never even occurred to me. Mm-hmm. It just so happened that during my ITP, I wanted to take advantage of getting an internship, and I realized that an internship was available at the Renaissance Fair, which is performance interpreting solely. And that's kind of where I started. And from there, I just randomly got connected with people more and more. And it was really interesting. And so I do find that all of a sudden, like, I'll have a show and I realize I'm like, I know all the music from this already. I really need to be focusing on this or this or this or this.
Because that's impossible. So say you have a character in a particular play, whatever play, and you're just not resonating with them. What is something that you do to make sure that character is represented authentically?
The really interesting question is, even if I don't necessarily resonate with the character or their actions, I mean, human emotion is like a universal language, So even if I can't necessarily connect with what the character is doing or how the character is. Like in that, I can probably connect with whatever their core emotion is because we've all experienced the whole range of emotions, you know. Like even retrospectively, one of a big challenge show for me was the show Ragtime, and I'll still all of a sudden like maybe I'll experience something, whether it's an emotion or a thought, and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my gosh, now I have so much more clarity for that one act or that one scene that was in Ragtime that I didn't have when I did it. Yeah.
Well, I know you have a really exciting workshop coming up. I'm going to try and put it up on the screen right now with all the details and how people can register. And it's going to be focusing on your particular steps that when you get a script, you go through, and you go through them in a specific order, and you're going to teach everyone at the workshop those tips and tricks. Yeah. And I am definitely going to be there. You already know I'm already going to be there.
Yes.
And one of the things I think is really cool that you mentioned that you are going to include is some of the considerations that interpreters should take when they get a script. Mm-hmm. And one of those things is doing your research about the time period, the place, the mentality of those characters and what they're living through. And I know you're going to cover it a lot more detail in your workshop, so I'm not going to go too much into it now, but I think that's like a very important thing to say because a lot of times we always talk about, okay, what's the speaker goal, okay? And if we know some kind of cultural reference about that person, then we will sign things differently to match that culture. And so there is going to be many different cultures that are going to be presented in these different scripts.
Yeah.
Are we in sync and aware of what those are? And if we aren't, are we strengthening them with that research and doing our due diligence and doing the deliberate practice before we get and show up for that assignment? And then you've got several other things that you're going to show, not only just your methodology. You're going to be talking about.
There is going to be discussions about characterization. I'm calling it performance interpreting from page to stage, because really what it is we're hired, we get a script. Mm-hmm. Maybe we know it, maybe we don't. What do we do? What is that process? Instead of just, well, I'm just going to read it 8,000 times and try to memorize it. I think what do we do? We're not there to memorize. We're not there to just kind of like just glance it over and regurgitate whatever we can. We're there to literally facilitate something that is being done for us better than we could do. So how do we match like the brilliance of the show and the brilliance of the actors that are doing the work? How do we do that? It's not just like a history lecture in a college classroom. So yeah.
A big part of my process when I get an opportunity to do theater work is I always try to arrange for a preview of the show, and if possible I always try to do a dress rehearsal preview, and it's right before production actually goes forward, and so they've already ironed out all of the little changes that would happen to the script or blocking. And when we go in and we get a chance to see that preview, we can incorporate a lot of those details, and we can figure out, okay, where are they on the stage right now? Where should I be looking? Are they lower than me? Are they higher than me? And a lot of that you're going to be discussing within the characterization portion of the workshop.
Yeah, and actually those are the things you really touched on, a lot of things. Those are the things I'm going to be going much more in depth about.
That's not your whole workshop. You've got so much more you're going to be talking about. And that's why I think having an opportunity to talk about your process is going to be so helpful, not only for interpreters who don't have any experience in theater, but it's also going to be really helpful for seasoned interpreters too. They can take this process, break it down, and find pieces that they can apply in other facets of their work, which I think is going to be super fascinating as well.
I think that there's something for everybody, because it's not just it doesn't have to just be about performance interpreting.
I remember we also discussed in a previous conversation, I distinctly remember you expressing how you really enjoyed when you get a script and you get to go through it and you see these little foreshadows being thrown out throughout the script that lead up to something.
Go in there.
Oh, no, just we're not going into it, but I thought that was a really interesting point, because that also I know you've mentioned to me personally that how when you can catch those foreshadows but you have to be looking for them because the authors have them in there, whether you're aware of them or not. So if you, when you're analyzing the script, finding out those important points to then really, to make sure that they're given the proper but not too much attention, that is a beautiful, delicate, I don't want to say burden. It's a delicate responsibility that you as a theater interpreter have, because no person just comes up in front. And I learned this sign from Bob Laparo. Bob, I hope you don't mind that I'm shouting out your name, but I thought it was brilliant. And he was presenting on Power and Privilege. And I took away this idea of like, this is what we think of as a person, but really there is this like big, long list of other things that we incorporate and that makes us who we are. And within that, if we are not taking all of this into consideration in our interpretation and we're only providing this, we're doing a disservice. And so I think I just thought that was like, it broke my brain, Bob, just so you know. It totally like it changed the way I approach my clients, and because none of us are what we ever appear to be. There's always so much more. And you know, the word for a while now has been intersectionality, and how we don't just have one face, we don't just have one thing. There is another culture, and I think it's Japanese culture, where you have three faces. You have the face you show to the world, you have the face you show to your family, and then you have the secret face of who you really are. And I thought, wow, okay, if we just even narrowed our intersectionality down to three things, wow, that how much of that are we incorporating in our interpreting, and how much, and a lot of that will depend on how much the deaf person actually wants us to show. A lot of times I think about, okay, what is my deaf person giving me? What are they showing me? But we have to also think about the person we're not often looking at, which is the hearing person. And because we're not often looking at them, because we're engaged with our deaf consumer, we don't get to see some of the visualizations that are happening sometimes.
Yeah, and the beauty of having a script is that we have the opportunity to sort of digest it, to see not only, you know, you talked about here's the person, so how are they showing up right now, either in this scene or in this moment, but then what is all of this? We have the opportunity to go through that. Whereas when we're showing up to a medical appointment, we don't always have the opportunity to do that. We have the time to maybe chit chat a little bit. We might get a few glimpses here and there, you know, to sort of maybe piecemeal, like you were talking about intersectionality, but we don't know where they've come from. We don't know what they've experienced. We don't know their history.
But with fictional characters, we have that opportunity. We have clip notes online. Like, come on, people, we can do this. You know, we can look up.
Yeah, and I actually think that by going through a lot of scripts, it's allowed me the opportunity to at least, again, have that in the back of my mind when I go to an assignment. And so, right, so we do it all the time.
The script. We get the luxury. I know people are like, oh, you have to have so much heart because it takes so much time to do theater work. But because we have a script, you now get to put all this beautiful effort and make sure that the work you're doing is verified. You get to test run it all before. You get to do so much glorious work and really focus on what your interpretation is going to be. It's really giving yourself time. You give yourself time to work on the work. And you know me, anytime I get to work on the work or talk about the work, I'm just like a happy girl.
I know. And you know what's beautiful about it also is that it's still subjective. Because even looking through a script, right, you get to decide it's what it means to you still. I mean, it's what it means to the character, but it's what you think it means to the character. It's what you think it means, you know, how it applies to all these things. There's more freedom in that than there is going into some sort of, you know, a lecture or a medical appointment, because, you know, so there is more freedom and flexibility and play and you know, playfulness and all of that when you get to work from a script, because you still get to have that bit of freedom of what does it mean to you? I'm thinking that it's all of these things, whether people do it subconsciously or unconsciously while they're actively interpreting. maybe it'll bring it to the forefront, in terms of, oh, these are skills. I don't have to practice my fluency anymore. I'm fluent in ASL. I got language. I'm there. What are other things that I can use? What are other tools that I can incorporate? These are those things. I already knew, right? Going through my ITB, we talked about predictive skills. We talked about all of these things, right? Because again, the more you know, the more schema, the more you have at your disposal before you even arrive, the more successful it's most likely going to be, right? Whatever the assignment is. And so the fact that you are kind of like flexing that muscle, now when you go into an assignment, that muscle has already been working and it's stronger. And so now your predictive sort of skill, like it's activated, I feel. Like it's more in use. It's instead of in the background, it's running in the foreground. And you filter in and out more information about where's this going and what are they going to say? What's the reaction?
And what I love is sometimes we're watching something and we're expecting a certain reaction. We're expecting a character to go in a specific direction because we feel like we have this relationship with this character. We've seen their backstory. We kind of seen what they've done thus far, and then something happens and they do something completely different. And the beauty of having the script is we know when those little jumps and turns are going to happen, those twists in the plot, so that we can work up into the interpretation up to that point. We want them to have that same surprise. So we can have it be, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what's going to happen. Oh, boom, it happens. And making sure that none of that bleeds into the beginning part of that character's story. And it's so much fun when we get a chance to play with the work, because when we're typically working, we're thrown into simultaneous more often than not. We don't get a chance to do a lot of consecutive interpreting. And even in these opportunities, we get to do both, because we get an opportunity to sit down with the script. We get to look at it, then interpret it. Look at it, then interpret it. So that's consecutive. And then we're doing it live, and that's simultaneous. Yeah. So we get a little blend of both worlds, and it marries well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right.
Well, to wrap up, I want to finish with asking you a question for all those interpreters who would love to be some type of theater or performance-based interpreter. That's their goal, or they would just like to maybe try it out. Maybe they haven't had a chance to have an experience. What is one thing that you would give them as either a suggestion or a tip or something to kind of just keep in the back of their mind when they get an assignment?
It's this idea of high stakes, low stakes, right? Okay, so I'm doing a shout out, Cindy, if you're watching. Cindy, it's burned in my brain that when I went through my ITP, she would always say, just let it go, because nobody's bleeding, no babies are dead. So I'm just going to throw this out there, because this is not a high stakes in that someone's life is not depending on your interpretation, right?
Right.
And so it is high stakes in that you want to do the best work possible. People are most likely buying seats, like buying a ticket to come and do this. Like, you want to honor that, be respectful of their experience, and respectful of the environment and all of its rich history of stage and theater and actors, and you want to respect all of the work that has gone into the production. I mean, that's really important. But there's also this idea of low stakes, because again, nobody's going to die if you find something wrong, and nobody's going to die if I signed it one way, but maybe the last interpreter that did it signed it a different way, because we had different perspectives on what the character was going through. Or low stakes in that, I mean, why do people go to the theater? Because it's enjoyment. It's sheer entertainment. It's more than that, of course, the human experience and all of those things. Right. But it's entertainment. And therefore, there has to be ingrained in it, just inherent in it, and inherent in performance interpreting, there needs to be a sense of play. because that's literally what it is at its core. And so that has to be part of the intention. What even if we're doing the most just gut wrenching drama, I mean they're still acting, you know?
That makes me think of ballet, because one of the big things about the ballet is how hard the ballet is. I have never done ballet, but I know it's hard. And the grace and how it has to look effortless. I mean, I'm not comparing interpreting work to the physicalness of ballet, but I am comparing it in the sense that all this work we do up to the point of actual performing, all that work when it hits and it's live and the spotlight comes on and the clients are in front of us, it should look effortless. It should look like we have been practicing this as much as the actors were practicing it. Now, granted, we don't always get to have that much time in practice, but but we should have that kind of like, no, I've got this, I prepared, and not to let it show, because like you said, they're there to enjoy, and that enjoyment to experience and be engaged with the performance that's being given on the stage.
And even if it doesn't for 100%, that moment is now past, and the show must literally go on. So then you get to go on with it and like leave that whatever flub or missed line or whatever it was, like you get to also leave it in the past. You know?
Yeah. And you were talking about Cindy, as in Cindy Herburst, right?
Yep.
Yes, she's the best. I love her. Cindy, if you want to come on here, I would love to interview you, because you are a wealth of knowledge in it yourself. Oh my goodness, I would love that. So Kim, one thing I want to ask you is if there was one thing that's impacting, changing, affecting the way and enhancing your work as an interpreter, what would that be? It could be tangible or intangible.
Yeah, I think for me, and I know that we've talked about this personally a lot, I think for me, it's imperative, like self-care is like numero uno. And I don't really mean self-care just, physical. It's really like, for me, it's almost like physical is lower on the list. I think for me, it's like mental, emotional health, and then it's physical health. Some people, spiritual health is on there. I've been doing a lot of like inner work, and the more sort of like mentally and emotionally clear, like the more that I can really just sort of work on those things, I notice a huge difference what I'm able to produce. I notice it can be simple things, but I notice that I show up differently. I show up with a different mindset. I show up, maybe I'm more compassionate. Maybe I'm just more open. So self-care is just really important, and it's never really discussed enough.
And along those lines, I'm going to recommend myself two things that have added value, one of which was recommended directly from Kim, which is a book called Lovability, and it's by Dr. Robert Holden, and also a TED Talk, or you can look at any of her I think she has 5 or 6 books out now, Dr. Brene Brown. If you would like to do any self-work in the mental space of being a deliberate practitioner, those would be really 2 great books to talking about enoughness. Well, Kim, thank you so much for being on Interpreters, Helping Interpreters, Real Talk, sharing your perspectives and your thoughts about theater interpreting. To all of us who love theater interpreting or would really like to know more about it, you can check Kim out at her Facebook page, as well as her email address, which I'll try and link below. And if you have any questions, one thing I would really love to hear from you as an audience is there something different that you do specifically for theater interpreting that you don't do in regular other assignments? Love to hear your thoughts on it. Go ahead and share some comments below, and I'll enjoy talking with you then.
And I want to add, also, I think if you have, I'm curious about this. If you have something that's holding you back from doing performance interpreting, what is it and why? That's what I want.
So I think Kim is saying if you make a comment about that below, she might address it in her workshop.
I most likely will. Yeah.
Yes, and that workshop is going to be on July
27th, Saturday, from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Kim, I just want to thank you so much for coming on, sharing your thoughts, sharing your wisdoms and your experiences. And I'm going to sign off here with do good work and share it with people. Thank you, everybody. Take care.